Chapter 13. My second date with Cynthia was much better than the first, in that it didn't end with a dead body. Over dinner, we discussed what I had learned about Alex's death, and Cynthia agreed that there wasn't much else to be done. She apologized again for being so edgy on the phone after her arrival in Springfield. On the way back to her apartment, we stepped into a Korean market to pick up a six-pack of Ballast Point Sculpin, and I splurged on a large bottle of Korsendonk. I admired the view as I followed her up the stairs to her apartment. The moment we got to the turn below her landing, she saw the splintered doorframe around the Medico and Rabson locks. "Son of a bitch," she cried, and before I could stop her, she ran up the remaining stairs. "Cynthia, wait," I yelled. "They could still be in there." I was hard on her heels, following her into the apartment. We heard banging, and then a shatter of glass. She ran towards her bedroom, and again I followed, catching her in the hallway. "Wait," I said. "You don't know if they're—" We heard clanging, but it didn't sound like it was in her room. It sounded like it was coming from outside. I peeked into her bedroom. It was empty, the curtains blowing in the cold wind coming in through the broken window. I crossed the room and poked my head out just in time to see an indistinct figure drop from the bottom of the fire escape. He ran down the alleyway and crashed through some garbage cans. Then he bounded up the back stores of the restaurant around the corner and disappeared into the service entrance. I turned to Cynthia. "It's okay," I said. "He's gone." I heard someone call, "Hello?" It was her neighbor, Hank. "We're in back." I heard some glass break and some yelling and banging on the fire escape, Hank said as he came down the hall. "I've been on nights the past 2 weeks, so I was sleeping, and it woke me up, and I thought—" He appeared in the door. "Jesus, what the hell happened?" "She was burgled." I crossed to the desk and dialed 911. A recording told me that I had reached the New York City Police and Fire emergency line, that all operators were currently busy, that my call would be answered in the order in which it was received, and that if my call was not a real emergency, to please contact my local precinct. I held and looked at Cynthia, who was shaking. Hank noticed it too. "Did you run into the guy?" he asked. "She chased him out. I don't know what she was thinking. I think it's just hitting her." "Ah." He put his arm around her. "Cyn, it's okay." She looked at him for a moment and then back at the wall. There wasn't anything interesting there that I could see. Finally, the police operator came on the line. I gave her my name, the address, and told her there had been a burglary. She said she would dispatch a patrol car. I crossed back to the bed and sat on the other side of Cynthia. Hank took his arm off her shoulders, and I replaced it with my own. Then the waterworks started, and I rocked her as the sobs came, stronger and stronger, and we waited for the police. "So she didn't get a good look at him?" Officer Cattell's was tall and rail thin, except for a belly the exact size and shape of a bowling ball cut in half. He had a long face, and behind his pursed lips he worked on a prodigious wad of gum. He looked like a Kamloo's hump had fallen from its back around to its stomach. Just from the back, and it was too far away to tell anything. He had on one of those green army ponchos with a hood, like the old G.I. Joes used to have. I couldn't even tell what kind of a build he had. "Could you tell, was he wearing gloves?" "No. He ran in the back door of the restaurant around the corner. Maybe someone in there saw something." Cattell's glanced at the other cop, Witten. At least that's what his name tag said. He hadn't spoken. He was tall, like his partner, but more solid, with gentle features and iron gray hair that looked like a shoeshine brush. He stood and strode out of the apartment. "He'll go see if anyone in the restaurant or kitchen can tell us anything. Not likely they was paying any attention. Then again, you never know." He continued to masticate and looked around at the mess. "You interrupted him, you say. There's nothing missing, I take it?" he asked, pen raised over his notepad. I don't live here. Sin? Anything missing that you can tell right now? Nothing obvious. Well, miss, I got all the info I need. Maybe tomorrow, go over everything real careful. If there's anything missing, give me a call at this number. He held out a card for her. I took it. We'll fill out a report, and you can get a copy of it for your insurance. A detective will be assigned tomorrow, and he'll be in touch. Also, we'll have the fingerprint guy come and give the place a going over. The sooner the better. That way you can get this place cleaned up. Would tonight be okay if he can make it? Cynthia shrugged. Yeah, sure. I'm not going to feel much like sleeping for a while, she said. Not here, anyway. Okay, he'll call you if he can make it over tonight. Cattell's flipped his notebook closed and stuffed it into his back pocket. Heading out the door, he fingered the splintered wood of the door frame. Better get this taken care of tonight. They'll walk off with all you have. And you better speak to the landlord. There's supposed to be a metal frame for these doors. Without that, well, you see how much good your locks did you. Here. He held out another card. My brother-in-law's got a 24-hour locksmith service. He's down on 47th Street. If you give him a call and tell him I sent you, bet he can have someone over here inside of an hour. I took the card. Thanks, officer. No problem. He lumbered off down the stairs. You take care now, miss. He turned the corner and was gone. You feeling better, kiddo? I asked Cynthia. The color was coming back to her cheeks. She smiled, leaning into my chest. Yes, I'm glad you were here. Again. She gave a quick shiver. Will you think me too forward if I asked you to stay tonight? I'd rather not sleep here alone. Of course. Let me call that locksmith. I dialed the number on the card, and they said they'd have someone there within an hour. This isn't making me feel very welcome here in the city, Cynthia said as I hung up the phone. I'm here for 5 months, and my roommate, my best friend, is killed in our apartment. Then away for 2 weeks, and my first night back, there's a break-in. It's not always like this, I promise. I was born and raised here, and this stuff never happens to me. She had articulated part of what was bothering me. Sometimes I believe in coincidences, sometimes I don't. Something besides my own stitches was itching away at the back of my skull, and I couldn't put my finger on it. Cynthia flicked on the TV. She seemed not to want to talk, so we watched drivel as I continued to scratch at whatever it was that was bothering me until the locksmith arrived. He assessed the situation, and I suggested that Cynthia get a police lock to supplement the 2 locks that had to be replaced. The locksmith quoted Cynthia an outrageous price. I snorted in disgust and tried to dicker him down, but Cynthia wanted to pay and get it over with. She'd had enough, so I let it go. But it rankled me, and I made a mental note to speak to Cattell's CO. Maybe he'd want to know one of his patrolmen was recommending his price-gouging brother-in-law to people under stress. Maybe not. As the locksmith went to work, I opened the Korsendonk, poured 2 glasses, and carried them into the living room where Cynthia had just dropped onto the couch. What's this? Korsendonk brown ale. I sat opposite her on the leather hassock, brewed by monks in Belgium. She took a sip. She murmured. It's very... She was drowned out by the locksmith's drill. She smiled, shrugged, toasted me with her glass, and then drained it. I cringed. You don't drain a glass of Korsendonk. You savor it. I opened one of the sculpins for her, and we quietly enjoyed our beer while the locksmith worked. After a few minutes, I became aware of a cold draft. The broken window back in Cynthia's room would need to be patched for the night, and she'd also need a security gate on it. I started back towards her room to shut the door, and as I passed Alex's old room, I looked in. It was a mess. There were several cardboard boxes, and all of them had been emptied. Papers and books were strewn against one wall. The mattress had been pulled off the box spring, and both had been slashed open. All the desk drawers had been pulled out, along with the dresser drawers. and the contents emptied in a corner. The clothes had been torn from his closet. The game pieces and cards to a Monopoly set, a Trivial Pursuit, a Parcheesi, and a Perquacky were scattered across the floor. I turned in the middle of the room, and then I heard the locksmith. "That wraps it up here." "Wait," I called. "There's one more thing." I headed out to the living room. "Do you do security gates too?" "Sure." "Where, the bedroom?" "Yes." I looked at Cynthia. "You've got to have one." She nodded. "Okay." We led the locksmith down the hall. He measured the window. It wasn't a standard size, so the grate would have to be custom built. He told us that would make it more expensive. Of course. Cynthia paid him for his work, plus a deposit on the grate, and he left with a promise to call when it was ready. Cynthia shut the door behind him and played with her new locks for a minute. She fumbled with the police lock, unsure of how it worked. I showed her and made her run through the routine a few times so she'd be comfortable getting out in the event of an emergency. I suggested she try all the keys to make sure they worked. She went out into the hall and locked everything from the outside, then let herself back in and relocked everything. There was a lot of snicking and snacking as keys slid into place, bolts shot home and then retracted. She undid them again and repeated the whole process. The third time she started to go through the routine, I put my hand on her arm and stopped her. She had her back to me. "It's okay, Sin. They work. He's gone." She turned and looked at me. Her eyes were a very deep green. I wanted to kiss her, but it wasn't a good time. Not because it was only our second date, but because it would have been taking advantage. Also, there was something I had to discuss with her, something that made me uncomfortable and that she wasn't going to like. As I tried to figure out how to break it to her, she leaned into me. She tilted her face up towards mine, closed her eyes, and waited. "Cynthia, there's something we have to talk about." "You're married," she purred. "No." "You're gay," she murmured. "No." "You think it would be wrong to take advantage of a girl in my weakened condition?" She squeezed me tighter. The thought had crossed my mind. Which thought? Taking advantage or the moral implications thereof? Both, but that's not the problem. She opened her eyes and looked up at me. A tiny furrow appeared between her perfect eyebrows. "What is it?" "This wasn't a random burglary. This guy was looking for something, and he didn't find it." Okay, so that is the end of chapter 11.